Ladies, gentlemen, and young ladies, good evening, everyone. You are still welcome in this news geopolitical conference dedicated to world news. In the news of international news, the Swedish Defense Minister comes to make a shock statement. Moscow is overwhelmed. The capital's Europeans themselves wonder what it is who took the gentleman. He is in the process to attract the wrath of Russia on Europe. That is, he wants to push Russia to raise all of Europe. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, this is an unexpected shock statement from Sweden, which has just joined NATO. And then the declaration is made by whom? By the Minister of Defense Swedish, as part of this conference, Geopolitics, dedicated to current events global. It is from this news, from this statement, that we will speak. But as usual, before to continue viewing this conference, I ask you to share in all groups as long as you can. Put a lot of likes and always remember to subscribe. This allows you to never miss out again international news. You must be informed. Our brothers and sisters of Africa must remain informed. President Ibrahimtraoré said it yesterday, we must speak to awaken the consciences. Youth should understand the operating mechanism of geopolitics. If this is not the case, we will not be able to never emancipate oneself. We must be informed of the realities to take the decisions that are imposed on us. That's what it's all about. Share it maximum, yes. So, Sweden calls Europe to go into war mode. Sweden calls on Europe to move to war mode. This is what the Minister of Defense Swedish had to say. Let's go into the depths. Ladies and gentlemen, the shocking statement from the Swedish minister. Here is the statement in its entirety. Switch to war mode to preserve peace. For him, we must leave in the hesitations. We must go into war mode with the Russia, of course, to preserve peace. So, the Swedish Defense Minister Paul Johnson said that Europe must now prepare for war for defend peace. I take back what he has said. This Minister of Defense, Paul Johnson, he said that Europe must, from now on, prepare for war to defend the peace. So he calls for a transformation, complete mental and military Europe. Mental transformation and military. You have to prepare, get into mode war. There, peace will return. Instead of sitting still, always stressed. When will this war come? Others say 2027, others say 2028. We must switch to war mode. So he says this. He says it is not enough. No, it is no longer enough to talk about defense. We must think war. It is no longer enough to talk about defense since all this time. Europe only talks about defense. We must defend us and so on. No, he says that we must think about war. So this statement that comes up while Sweden has just joined newly NATO and Sweden prepare sending new equipment, military to Ukraine, and therefore behind words, we have a justification. It's true, Sweden is trying to stick out its chest, but it's a way to find a rational justification for rearmament unpublished from all European countries. They have already started the process of rearmament by devoting, I believe, 5% of their GDP to the expenditure of the military defense. Even if this consecration was only formal for satisfy Donald Trump's appetite and the demands of Donald Trump, since at the time it was necessary to do this, that to see that the customs duty surcharge that Washington had imposed to the European capitals to see that it may decrease. But it must be said that they have already started the rearmament. They are rearming. But how to find more supporting documents? Is it true what the Sweden is saying? It seems to be really provocative. But the truth is that Europe today is like a cat in the face of an elephant, or even a rooster in front of an elephant. Here's the problem. And so when a defense minister speaks of peace but uses the word war, this means that Europe has already chosen its camp. Europe is not for peace. It is a minister of defense who speak. So Europe is really for war. That's what it means. And so it's an anti-Russian obsession which is behind the moral discourse of this gentleman called Johnson. First of all, it must be said that this gentleman, Minister of Defense Swedish by Johnson, he first designated Russia as the Europe's main threat. He advocated tougher sanctions, economic and technological, because for him Russia is the main threat. So the objective, what is it? The objective of this anti-Russia obsession, he wants Moscow be fulfilled. To dissuade, eh? Moscow must be rigged, and therefore it is necessary to dissuade any European state from deviate from the Washington line. We must stay in line with Washington, which consists of being on the hard line against the Russian Federation. So it is a speech that is part of the American logic, total containment, which is now assumed by the Nordic capital. There you go, Russia must be completely contained. That's the speech from Washington. Even if in recent hours Donald Trump rent a tent, Donald Trump is trying to remix things, to lighten things up things, and then see how Budapest negotiations may have place. But deep down, we must seek to content Russia. So Stockholm wants to show NATO its absolute loyalty, even if it would cost the militarization of all of Europe. Stockholm wants this voice. So we are in a Europe which is in the midst of a strategic transformation. There you go. And now after this statement made by a Minister of Defense, all ideas will be directed towards a war economy. Even if this weakens the European economy, even if this affects Europe and Europe has not even the necessary means to rearm, since the economy is already at red. They don't have the means. If they had the means, they could do it. Europe can only count on America. Now, America also says that everything is exhausted. The war in Ukraine has ruined the economy American. Even the reserve of weapons stockpile American, it's sold out. It's one reason why these latter time Washington stopped delivering like it happened before the weapons to Ukraine. And so ladies and gentlemen, that was it, the headlines. Thank you for the share as much as possible. I'll get back to you soon with news. It was, of course, the voice of your humble servant, the Samurai.